Have you ever wondered why some voices get heard while others just get lost in the noise? It's not luck, it's strategy. And today we're talking to Matt Reiner, advisor, podcaster, speaker, and thought leader who hasn't just shown up. He's actually made people pay attention. And we're going to break down the moments that changed everything, the strategies that worked, the ones that backfired. And if you're done blending in and you want to stand out, this is the show for you. So I'm Matt Halloran. I've spent years helping experts just like Matt build authority and grow their influence. If you're ready to stand out, this podcast is your blueprint, real strategies to make your voice rise above the noise. Matt, welcome to the show.
Matt, thanks for having me, man. I always appreciate being on with you and you having me on. Love what you're doing, so thank you.
Yeah, I love being on your show, but that's really where we're gonna start, Matt. So you're in financial services, which is a very, very crowded marketplace. And when did you realize that you couldn't do what everybody else was doing, that you had to rise above the noise?
Yeah, I think it's just been in the natural genes of who we are as a business. And I kind of just saw it from some of the peers around me. I mean, our business, if you go back to how we started, we did things differently from the beginning. My dad founded the firm 28 years ago. I have been a part of that journey and started formally about 18 years ago. But we started our business in a world of radio. And that's how we started growing our business. And I found and knew and understood the value of content and the value of speaking and connecting through different mediums at scale. And I learned that from watching the original host of our radio show to now my business partner and host of the radio show, and how he's been able to do it throughout the journey from radio to now podcasts to books. And I had this natural desire of just connecting with people at scale. I love conversations like this. And it's hard to have a lot of these conversations one-to-one all the time. And I wanted to be able to share and connect in different ways. And I felt that I had to do that via a medium like the podcast, like a book, like an email marketing strategy, like blogging, whatever it may be. And for me, it was all about just testing and iterating. And, as you'll hear about my story, I was always trying to figure out what my value was in a business that was started by my dad, and my brother was there early on. I had a ton of imposter syndrome early on. And so for me, I wanted my voice to be heard. I needed to find my path. And my path was sharing my mind. And I thought differently. And I thought that I was wrong for thinking differently. But I found a niche and I found a value. And I love to write. I love to speak. And I wanted to do more of it. And it made me feel good. And so I just explored. And I don't know if I figured it out. I don't think I have. I just kind of, I just love the process of it. And, if it impacts one or two people, then that's great, in my mind.
But you've influenced way more than one or two people. You really hit that meteoric rise. When did you feel that kind of wind at your back, that momentum?
I don't know if I feel it still. I believe that my impact that I can have is much greater than the one I am having today. And I don't, that is the challenge with content creation and getting above the noise, as you talk about, is that when you are trying to get above the noise, you never feel like you are making any progress in that bout, because you're in an echo chamber. You're by yourself, and we are wanting everybody to like our stuff and share our stuff and tell us how much great it is. But you are writing so much and doing so much, speaking so often and recording so many podcasts, and you're looking at the data and it may not align with what you think is creating value. And you're just in this echo chamber, and you have to have consistency to be able to do that. And I've struggled with that a lot. I have felt very lonely a lot of times. I have not shared. I've kept a lot of things to my chest. And I went through a leadership retreat with my leadership team. There's 4 other leaders there. And this was my first time ever doing therapy. Basically, it was like a therapy session for 2 days with other people. And I started to share some of the things that I was feeling and how I felt. And I identified that I was always trying to prove myself because I wanted people to see me, and I never felt seen. And I wanted to prove myself. And I kept everything close to my chest because I was so lonely. And I was just doing it, and I didn't feel that anybody had it. And as we went around the room, everybody's responses to me was drastically different than the lens that I was viewing the world at. And it was a mind-blowing aspect for me, because I've been doing therapy for 12 years, but this is the first time I've ever done it with other individuals. And to hear how they viewed me versus how I felt that others viewed me was drastically different. And I think that when I got that perception, it also changed my perception of my content strategy with my community that follows me, is that there are people out there that care, that read it, that do respond to it. And that is what gets me up every night. But it's a long time, and you have to be willing to go through these trials and tribulations and just be consistent, and find solace in what you're doing and doing it for you, not for the likes from that standpoint.
Yeah, those vanity metrics can be magnificently intoxicating. They can also be horribly depressing. So I'm gonna dive into what you just said a little bit more deeply, because I think there's so much there we could actually do, and maybe this is where the podcast is really going to go. Because when you're creating content and you are trying to rise above the noise, there are certain things that you have to be okay with in yourself in order to create truly authentic content, which is what you're doing. And Matt, I remember watching this on your journey, dude, because I've been following you for a long time. When you were first doing your podcast, it was good. It was good because you're good and you're good at it. And then something switched, right? And you switched. And now what you're creating is going to magnetically attract those like-minded people who are interested in doing the self-work, who've done the self-work, or who want to learn from you about the self-work, because that's where true authenticity comes from. You got to be comfortable in your own skin. In fact, dude, I was just on a podcast this morning. We call it the OPP strategy, other people's podcast strategy. And that we were talking about some of those things. And I said, one of the most important things that people need to understand in this game that we live in is, if you don't love yourself, and if you're not proud of yourself, and if you don't think that you're wicked smart, you can't communicate that in your freaking content. So if you don't mind, let's talk about that journey just a little bit more, because and I'm very, very grateful that you shared that, because I think our listeners specifically need to realize that some people need to go through that process. Most people need to go through that process to truly rise above the noise.
I mean, that's my story, man. That is why I am who I am and where I've come to. I was constantly on this journey of trying to please others. I am a people pleaser at heart. And, when you come into a family-run business that was already almost at $1 billion of assets under management at that time, was established, but then had the Great Recession and was down, but we had the infrastructure of $1 billion revenue or AUM business. Like, what is my worth? My dad gave me this role, and I, at that point, was lost. I was just looking for people to accept me, and I was looking for external acceptance when I never had internal acceptance of self. I never accepted who I was and the way I am, because I always thought that I had to be someone else to get accepted by others. But the reality is that you're never going to get accepted by all. And the start of this journey for me started I remember 12 years ago, because I remember it was a pivotal moment in my life where I was at the time in a relationship, and I remember that saying, like, I have been prone to getting in my own way with relationships and ending them because they're not perfect and they don't align exactly how I want them. And so it was my fault, but I was always pushing the blame on others. But this specific relationship, I didn't want to do that. So I took it onto myself to put the work in, and I started to see a therapist who I still see today, because I went to her specifically and said, I'm in this relationship. I need to figure out about myself because I don't want to lose this one. And now that's been my wife for 10 years. I still see that therapist going forward. And that was the beginning of the self-work journey. And it was like this understanding of, who I am is built on all these different experiences that I don't realize. And like, I had 2 loving parents and a loving household. But in all of us as parents, if you are a parent, like, you try your best, but we all are screwing up our kids somehow, not on purpose, but just because we are naturally human, and that's just the nature of it. And I remember one time my mom was like, I love you. You did your best. Like, I'm super grateful for you, but you also screwed me up. Like, you screwed me up too. And she got defensive because that's like the old school mentality. But the reality is that the way that they were changed, who I was. And, this like perfectionist mentality and like, I don't know if I accept me, and like they gave me love, but was it all right? And like I had to explore that. Everybody's like, oh, I got it. Like I understand it, but you don't really get it until you go deep within it. And when you go deep, you start to see things that you're scared to admit. But if you can do it in a safe environment where you're alone with the therapist, you can go through it and it changes the trajectory of where you go. And so for me, then the next step was I needed to prove myself. I still was going through this journey. And so I started a business within our business and I ran it. I thought that that's what I had to do to earn my keep, right? My stars and stripes. And it was the best experience that I ever had. But there was a book I read called Reboot, which was a private equity or venture capital person that talked about putting failure on the table. As I ran that business for the first 4 years, I was running away from failure, thinking that I can't fail. I have to succeed, because if I don't, then it's going to show everybody that I am a fraud. I'm a fraud, imposter syndrome 101. And I read this book and said, you got to put failure on the table. When I put failure on the table, that this could fail, it opened up the doors. And then it ultimately did fail. And that was kind of the game-changing moment to where I saw that I failed in a business. And you know what happened? All of the stories and the narratives that I had created in my head weren't true. And all the work that I had done prior allowed me to see the other side. And it was this like combustion of two things merging: the work I've done to allow me to get to that point, and this reality that what I built in my head and narratives were completely false, has allowed me to say, you can love yourself for who you are and be who you are. And not everybody's going to like it or agree with it, but as long as you do, it doesn't matter. And there's going to be enough of a community or a clan or whatever you want to call it, or a herd that will. And those are the people you can impact, as opposed to trying to change everybody to like you, because that's an impossible game. That's a hamster wheel.
Yeah. So that's a huge takeaway that I want everybody to just kind of take this point in time to realize that when you do create your own herd, when you create your community, that you're going to repel it. You're going to repel as many people as you attract. So let's dive into that, Matt, because I think that's a really interesting pivot here. So we've got the foundation of the Mattness. Like, what has made you truly rise above the noise is the fact that you have been finally comfortable with yourself, and you're continuing that journey, because it's a never ending journey of figuring out really who you are and what makes you unique and different. But now you've gotten this tribe, you actually have a robust amount of followers. What do you do to maintain that relationship with them? And then what do you do to get them more into loving you, for lack of a better description, and loving what you do?
Yeah. I think, and as you say, like everything in this journey is a work in progress. But, for me, what I have found, because I've been on this journey for a while of trying to build a community. And I think that I have found what it is that I want, because I have found who it is that I want to be and what it is I want to talk about. And I think that the best way for me is that I am truly authentic in who I am. Like my writing style, what I write about, what I talk about. And like I used to try to fit into this box of all these successful people and do it this way, or try to please these people, or don't say this because what does it mean to XYZ? And for me to build that community is I want to be around them, but I feel that the way that I can help them is just continuously deliver authenticity and value. And if I can deliver them something of value, my goal in everything that I do is, can I get them to think about one thing, one small takeaway? I spend hours building content every week, and all I'm asking for is one nugget that takes them 3 seconds. And so if I can distill the complex and make it relatable, that they can take away a nugget, then that 3 hours was a high ROI. Whereas everybody, I think, wants to have it like be massively shared. Like, I don't care anymore about like, is it shared? Is it whatever? Like, yes, I want to make sure I'm using that as understanding, like, is it resonating? Is it not resonating? But more so, it's like, if I'm going to lean more into me, what do I care about? And if I care about it, then the people that follow me, we're going to care about it as well. And if I can go deeper into that and make it interesting to me, then it's going to be super interesting to them. And they're going to see it on the paper. They're going to see it on the audio. They're going to see it in the video. And if I'm not trying to be someone that I think they want me to be, but I'm being who I want to be, that is what I'm all about. That's how I build this community, is that all you read and see, that is me. Super interested, like intrigued. I'm curious. Like I want to explore it. I think it's super interesting and I'm going to share it. And you're going to feel that passion every single time. And if you don't, it means it's something I don't care about. I remember one time I went down and spoke at a conference, Inside ETFs. Great conference. I think Mac Hogan used to run it at that point. I don't remember, but awesome conference. They wanted me to speak about ETFs and income ETFs. Yes, that's what we do at our firm. We are really great at it. That is not a topic that I enjoy. And I remember getting up on stage and it was the lamest presentation ever, ever. And I remember I had our production Marissa down there filming it because I needed some film. And it was like, that was so lame. And then just last week, I was speaking on AI to wealth managers, and gosh darn it, that I killed it, because that was something I was passionate about and people felt it. People were engaged with it. People were walking out at Inside ETFs as I talked. And I finally figured out, like, you got to talk and lean in on what you care about and stop trying to lean in on everything. And that's who I am. Like, you see it all in my stuff. Like, I lay it all out there. I am an emotional person. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. And like, as I've kind of taken more and more strategic roles in the business, I've had to evolve a little bit, but you're still going to get me in all my content. I think that that's how I try to build the community. And if people don't like appreciate it or it doesn't resonate, like, I respect that 100%. But there are people that it resonates with, and that's who I'm talking to.
So let's dive in more deeply on this community component of it, because, you know, this podcast is not just about rising above the noise, but being able to take this gift that you've given yourself of unapologetically being yourself and actually turning into a business opportunity, because that's what the people who listen to the show, they're business people, right? And so talk to us about that. So you have built this brand, this Matt brand, right? What are you doing with that? How is that helping you? In what ways is it helping you from a revenue standpoint, from a sales perspective? Talk about that stuff, please.
I think that this is where maybe people see through me. I started this with no business really outcome. It was just, I wanted just to create value. And it was really, if you think about like my journey of like self-acceptance and at gradual acceptance, I saw this as an opportunity for me just to be accepted. So that's all. That was like the value to me. I struggled at figuring out the business value. I started this out as a journey to build a following to help with our technology sales that we were selling a technology business to RIAs, and I was using it at that point. And then once that folded, I still really loved content, and so I was like, I'm just going to go build. I still love talking to RIAs, so I'm just going to go build it. I've always been on the mindset of go and just build great content, and the business side of it will come. I feel like I've been misdirected myself, and this is just me. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Is that when I went into it for a business purpose, I was always misaligned on the content. And so I never delivered really valuable content because I was focused on getting you to the end state of the business purpose, as opposed to investing in creating value and authenticity in the content itself. And so I was really struggling. But recently I've found this like personal brand that aligns with what I really love. I went and did a lot of work on that. And those combinations now also help me with a business case that we now have that aligns with our greater business that we have. And so I'm not on an island anymore. And that's, I think, why people are starting to see like the real Matt come out lately, is because I have like this energy every single day because I'm doing something that I'm passionate about. And I love like mind leverage and innovation, which is super interesting to me. But it all is now building an audience that I get to write about it and research about it and talk about it. And like, I'm doing studies on it. Like, let's go. Like, that is awesome. But it also aligns with the business case, right? Our business, our decision as leaders and managing partners of the business was, we feel that we're never going to take private equity money in wealth management. That's a big thing going on in wealth management these days. Private equity money to get out. We've decided we're young. We have a lot of growth ambition and a lot of time ahead of us, that we don't want to take private equity money. And so what we did say is that we have something that is very valuable to other advisors and other wealth managers, which is we are growing rapidly and we have a lot of it. And we need more people that want some of it and that want to be a part of something special. And so we are getting into this area within acquisitions and acqui-hires, we call them, where they're not the ones that are going and getting like the huge checks, but the ones that want to go be part of a team and grow their business. And so, that is this brand now talks about why we are so special. It is the foundational elements of what makes all of me and my partners really special, and every single person inside of our organization, all 115 of them, super special. And my goal is that people just find that that is special and that we think differently and that we are human and authentic. And when they hit a growth spurt or a growth kind of wall, or from it be personal growth or client growth, that they can come join us. And we are here and we'll help them, and they can be part of the family and the growth that we're doing right now.
That was everything I was looking for, Matt, because leading with real authentic content, what we refer to as the you-ness or the Mattness of what you're really building, leading with the authentic content, the high quality content, and the content that you're passionate about, you are going to be attracting people to that, right? And that's the business sense of this. Now, and I also really appreciate your transparency that it didn't happen super fast, man. This has been a heck of a process that's been happening, for quite a long time. And now with that, so if you, speaking directly to our audience, if you were able to give them a piece of advice on either, well, I want to focus on this. If you were to give them a piece of advice on how they can get comfortable with the uncomfortable process of being cool with who you are in your own skin, what sort of piece of advice would you give? And because I know you do this already, so this is something that I know you talk about.
I think that the piece of advice I'd give them is to be curious, but it's an inward curiosity, not an external curiosity. And I think that you have to be open-minded with yourself and know that there is no one path. I think that I was always looking for that one path, and I was like trying to be someone that I wasn't. But then I got curious about what I liked, and I spent time, and it was like everything stacks on each other. Like nothing that I have done has been a failure. Things have not worked out, but I've learned so much, and each piece of those I've tweaked and iterated and got more piece of advice of who I am. And I think that it's uncomfortable because we grow up in a system in the world where like you are told either you are a failure or you're a success. You pass or you fail. You get there's a right or a wrong. And so when you get in the middle of the gray, it's like you feel lost. Like you're like, where do I go? I need these barriers on this platform to help me. And so what I say is that it becomes more comfortable when you are doing something that you truly love and you're passionate about. And when you do love it, not for the outcome, that is the biggest thing. You have to do it because you just genuinely love it. Like I never really understood what people said. Like whatever the saying is, like I don't work, it's like my passion, but like, or I go home and I still do this. Like I never quite understood that. Like I kind of just forced myself to do that early on. But like now, for instance, like I read stoicism, I read stuff about your mind. Like I love diving into like how to make things efficient. And I read about and listen about AI all the time just because I think it's super interesting. And I would do that at night. I do that in my car. I do it everywhere. I talk to my wife about it. She doesn't want to listen to me about it. But like when you find that, like that's what it is. Like talking to my wife about investment management, I think it's super important. My mission in life is that I believe every human needs a human financial advisor. Like that is my mission in life. So I find value in it. But there's so many other people on my team that are so much better at it than I am. And that's their passion. And I love that. And they're the best. Me, my passion is like, I want to live in the clouds. Mm-hmm. And I found that and I adopted that, but I didn't get there. I got there like a long, weavy way. And so you have to, the outcome is not this conversation. There is no end game. You have to be okay with the infinite game, as Simon Sinek talks about, or you're never going to be good at this journey because it's not going to happen overnight. It's like one day it's going to happen. You're like, how the hell did that happen? And you just committed to the journey because you were loving getting better. That's what it's about.
I think that's going to be the title of this episode, Commit to the Journey. Just because, I'm always looking for that sort of, piece of gold in all of these. And I think you are living proof of that. ProudMouth is living proof of that, when you commit to something, even though that there are going to be people who don't like you, who don't want to be, and since the world is not black and white and right or wrong or good or bad, right? We all live in that world of gray, that kind of swirling mix of absolutely everything. And when you you get comfortable in that, that's super, super important. Now, I'm going to ask you a very pointed question about financial services, just because not everybody who's listening to this is a financial advisor, but I just love this question. And Nicole, who's our marketing director, came up with this question. It's one of my favorite ones to ask, which is, what is the biggest misconception about our industry, financial services, that industry, that you think needs to die?
Oh man, we could do a whole podcast on this. I mean, there's so many. Let me think of the best one. I think that financial advisors are not worth the fee that they charge. That financial advisors have to change the fee structure because their value is not worth it. And I think that is the whole crock of you know what. Mm-hmm. And I think that I just did I'm about to launch a nationwide study where we went and studied affluent Americans across America that had more than $100,000 of investable assets outside of their house. And it looked at some people that had financial advisors and some that didn't. And what you saw is the number one reason why people don't have a financial advisor is the fees are too high. Wow. And that was the number one reason. And then they also believe that they can do it on their own. And here's the reality. I didn't get to where I am today on my own. I had a ton of help, a lot of life lessons, a lot of people involved in it. Without my therapist, without it being introduced to Stoicism, and without some of my mentors that I had, I would not be where I am, who I am, or even with the family that I have today. Every single great person or great entrepreneur or great whatever has a coach. The best golfers in the world, the best baseball players in the world have a coach. And you know why they pay for it? Because they know the value of having someone else in their corner to give another set of eyes that doesn't have the emotional insides that are happening every day. A financial advisor is worth every penny because they are that coach that when you have this emotional drama, which is life, headlines, whatever it is, you need someone that's there on your side. And they're not there. These people truly do care about the human. Yes, they make money, but so does everybody. Money is what that is the currency that we get out of what we're doing as a service. But we do care. If we didn't care, then we wouldn't be around in this business. And I think that just that value of helping people stay invested, helping people navigate their mental and emotional, psychological challenges that they face is worth every penny. My therapist raises prices every year. And you know what? I never budge because I know the value. Without her, I'd be a lost puppy. I'd be a lost puppy. And I see it with financial, there's we call them boomerang families that they go and then they come back because they experience something, and nothing in this world moves linearly. And everybody thinks that, well, how it has been is how it's going to be. So I'm going to be able to navigate it because I navigated what was. And that's just not the reality of life. That's just not the reality of life.
Yeah. All right. So now we're going to focus on the Matt playbook, right? So the big takeaways that you want our audience to accept, implement into their life. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have too many that I wrote down. But if you could choose 3 things that you talked about today that you really want our audience to take home and implement immediately after they get done downloading the playbook, what do you think those things would be?
Yeah. So the whole aspect of what I write about and talk about with the Future Proof Advisor and my brand is it hinges on 3 overlying pillars that have 12 pillars underneath them. But the 3 pillars overlying are mind, leverage, and innovation. And I think that the 3 takeaways is that for us to be better in whatever role or responsibility you are, or just as a human being, you have to start by focusing on your mind. And how you focus on your mind is, as I talked about, having a curious mindset, having an understanding of you versus future you, the Hal Hirschfield mentality, and the ability of understanding that failure is not a replication of who you are. It's just a step in the journey of where you're going. And you have to have this mindset and invest in this mindset. And that's step 1. The second is to create leverage. Leverage is all about having processes and systems in your day-to-day to allow for you to go and be the best version of you. Too often we're running based on what's most on fire or what's chaos right now and go into that. And it's a chaotic world that our mind, we only have a certain number of amount of cognitive load every day. And if we're wasting it trying to think about what we need to focus on, we're wasting great opportunity to put our minds to great work for better causes. So it's about leverage. We have to create leverage, but you can't create leverage without the mindset. So it has to go in sequential order with this playbook. And then the final is all around innovation. This is like the peak of the pyramid, right? This is where all the fun happens. This is where the juice is, the greatness is the ability to go and explore and try by doing and learn new things and try new things. Whether for me, instance, it's like AI. How can I bring AI into wealth management more specifically? What does AI mean to me professionally? And I want to go and implement and integrate and try all these new things and innovate to learn, right? Innovation to learn. And this is the research and the execution and the inspiration. This is where all the fun is. But you can't get there if you don't have the mindset, because if you don't have the mindset that failure doesn't define you, it's just part of the journey, then you're going to fail a lot in innovation. So you're just going to stop and be done. So you have to have the mindset. You don't have the leverage or the time or the efficiencies already created, you're never going to be able to, you're always going to be pushing off innovation until it's too late. So you have to create it. So you have to move sequentially to get there. And that's what I call as the future-proof advisor. But hell, you can make it the future-proof human. That is the journey I go on. The reason I'm so passionate about this is that this is my journey. And I will tell you right now, I am the one that is not great at any of these. Like, I am work in progress every single day, but like I bucket everything I do in these 3 buckets to make myself better. And I'm getting better every single day at it. But it's a work. There is no finish line. It is a constant race until we're 6 feet under.
Yeah. So if people want to know more about the Future Proof Human, which, by the way, that's a really great brand, dude. I love that. Or the Future Proof Advisor, or getting involved in your community, where should they go?
Yeah, go to mattreiner.com. You'll see everything. We're redoing the website. We'll have the study up there here in a few months as well. Go to mattreiner.com or follow me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn under Matt Reiner, Reiner, or Twitter at Matt Reiner. But go to mattreiner.com to start. Sign up for the Future Proof Advisor newsletter, where I talk about this stuff every single week. Would love to have you part of the family and the community there.
And just as a shameless plug, because I've seen you speak, and if you're also looking for an amazing keynote speaker at your next conference, talking about these sorts of 3 pillars that Matt talked about, please, again, and I know they can fill out something, or they can connect with you directly on LinkedIn. So that's a wrap of this episode of Rise Above the Noise. If this conversation gave you something to think about, please share it. Of course, we're just launching the show. But also make sure that you subscribe, because people like Matt are who we're getting on this show. The idea behind Rising Above the Noise is, what do you need to do to become a category of one and attract the ideal people to who you are and what you do and what makes you unique and different. Now, for more insights and exclusive content, head to the playbook link that is in the show notes. You're going to get your Matt Reiner playbook. And there's other playbooks there too from the other guests. So please make sure that you do that. And listen, what I want you to do is go make your voice impossible to ignore. And I am Matt Halloran, and I will see you on the other side of the mic very soon. Hey, don't touch that dial yet. Before you go, get a copy of the tools and strategies to rise above the noise shared by our guests in this week's playbook. To claim your free playbook and access our growing collection, go to proudmouth.com/playbook. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Here's to rising above the noise, one episode at a time.